Good day, everybody. This is Yin Yang in California with Morsels of a Thought number 1493. Here we are in the R Factor by Maris Segal and Ken Ashby. La la la. We are reading about the universal rhythms for leading prosperous relationships. The R Factor Evolving Our Human Relationship Story. Let me get myself into the picture here. Oh my gosh. Yeah, go further down. Okay. There we go. I think this is better. I think so. Anyway, um, okay. We're on page 145, chapter 13, Inspiration. Inspiration is the power tool of creative vision. Now, here we are borrowing from morsels of a thought of wisdom from other people. Knowing what to do is a part of wisdom, and doing the right thing is virtue. We make virtue in this program, and hopefully we change the world. We entertain you a little, and for 23 minutes at a time, we try to get a half-hour show going on here. Mindy's feedback, because they put in commercials, Mindy's feedback gave Rich the inspiration he needed to improve his songwriting skills. In doing so, he discovered a lot about his previous efforts and himself. So what was said is chapter 13, Inspiration. Inspiration is the power tool of creative vision. Suddenly, he could listen to his songs objectively, and he was able to see them in a different light. As a published songwriter, he was validated, knowing that he had what it takes to write a hit song. But he now knew that there was more to songwriting than following the mechanics. For years, he'd been writing songs that were safe and that he thought would appeal to a large audience. However, safe meant generic. He hadn't gone out on a limb and risked bearing his heart and soul in his songs. He hadn't created a relationship with his songs or with his listeners. In an impromptu visit to a local bookstore, he got sidetracked by watching the other patrons in the store. He found himself imagining their stories and backgrounds, their joys and struggles, all things that make for great songwriting, and he was inspired to jot down some of his thoughts. Looking around for a piece of paper, he spied one sitting on an empty table nearby. So here we are. Picking it up, he discovered that he was holding a vocabulary that list in his hand. At the top of the page, the following words were printed: Week 12, Vocabulary Words, Mrs. King's Class. A quick glance through a child's forgotten vocabulary list told him that all the words started with the letter R. Curious, he skimmed through them. Rapport, relationship, respect, represent, responsibility, resistance, reframe, record, resilience, and rhythm. So this is the list he put in. This is very visual. If you're visual, this will help you a lot. Let me try this again here. I'm putting the correct page on the screen and showing you the whole page, I think. There we are. All right. There we are. Okay. So, and we also want to look at the words that are in the wallet wisdom, that in the rhythm of respect. These are all the words that we talk about in here. Respect, responsibility, reframing, and resilience. So here we are. Okay, there we are. This is their card. Maris Segal and Ken Ashby. Ashby is the name of the street in Berkeley that's very famous for being the alternate exit to get to the university without cramming yourself into traffic most of the time. That's what I thought. Okay, so strange, he thought. Every one of these words could apply to me. They've all come into play in my life in the past year. Taking another look, he read the definitions, and the one that resonated with him the most was resilience. 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 The capacity to recover quickly from difficulties. Toughness. Resilience. Resilience. I guess that's a lot of people pronounce it resilience, but it's resilience. It occurred to Rich that resilience was definitely something that would have benefited him years before. Rather than developing that capacity to bounce back, he had been unwilling to let his difficulties go, hanging on to them and allowing them to hold him back. Instead of being resilient, he'd let his disappointments and difficulties carry too much weight, ultimately making him unable to move forward until recently, that is. This was now his moment to face it. It was his time to stand up, step forward, and not be afraid to ask for support. He was proud of how much he'd grown as a person and as a songwriter. He'd made peace with his past and forged a new relationship with his sister and brother. Imagine that a little relationship can get in the way of your resilience. Rich also had deepened his relationship with his father, and while he found that their roles had changed due to his dad's illness, he knew he'd never again take his dad or siblings for granted. While he was grateful for that, he regretted that he nearly lost his father before coming to that realization. His resilience as a songwriter was even more profound. Over the course of the last year, he had become keenly aware of one of his greatest pitfalls, his ego. In the past, he'd always wanted to be a hit songwriter, not because he wanted to change the world through the music he created, but because his ego craved the recognition and accolades of reaching that pinnacle of success. He had been striving to gain a feather in his cap, but he was going about earning it the wrong way. He was going about earning it in the wrong way. His resistance to change had been his pitfall for sure, and it showed in the songs he'd written throughout the years. Revisiting them, it was apparent that while he knew the mechanics of creating a rhythm, his music and lyrics had been out of sync with each other. If the lyrics were strong, he made the melody even stronger. The end result was like two people having an argument, with each person's voice rising in response to the other. In the end, they fought instead of enhancing each other. He knew now that the two didn't have to be equal as long as they supported each other. A strong lyric could ride on a subtle melody, and an amazing melody didn't require overpowering lyrics. His knee-jerk response to Mindy's feedback the year before was the perfect example, proof that he'd been out of sync and out of rhythm with everything he'd wanted to accomplish and become all along. Hundreds of miles away, Mindy was discovering a different passion for her career, one that kept pulling her in an unexplored direction. She was coming to terms with the fact that the frequent traveling she'd been doing had not only caused her a great deal of stress, but it had also impacted Rose, who was truly enjoying her mother's full-time attention. While Mindy also intended to enjoy their time together, she knew it was temporary. She'd always prided herself on being able to support her family, and she knew she didn't want to change. At the same time, she also knew that is inevitable. At the same time, she also knew that change is inevitable. What if there were a way for her to do what she loved without all of the traveling? Something that could keep her closer to Rose while staying in the entertainment industry that she loved. It occurred to her that she could outsource her services, picking and choosing select concerts, but that just seemed to be a watered down version of what she'd always done. So she kept her eyes and ears open, knowing that there had to be something out there that would allow her to do the things she wanted on her own terms. It was during a visit to a renowned eye specialist in Denver that she received her inspiration. Not having visited this specialist before, she had Googled Dr. Linda Patel's practice. The ophthalmologist had impressive credentials, but what stuck out to Mindy was that she had founded a not for profit organization consisting of a group of her peers who volunteered to treat indigent patients with sight threatening diseases at no cost. Sitting in the waiting room, she eyed a brochure promoting the organization. The company, Healing Vision, had initially started on a small scale, treating the residents of an Indian reservation, but throughout the years, it had expanded to the underserved across it had expanded to the underserved across the country and into some of the poorest nations. Over time, hundreds, maybe thousands of optometrists had joined the cause, expanding their services to include prescription eyeglasses for military veterans. And I have spent my career helping affluent musicians and people who can afford to pay top dollar for concert tickets, she thought. Somehow, her career no longer felt so fulfilling. In many ways, it paled in comparison to the real difference these people were making. A quick search on the web revealed a recent study that had found that 88% of people worldwide ranked vision as the most valuable of their senses. Mindy thought. Based on your records, I'm happy to say that I see significant improvement in your vision. However, there will be a possibility of a recurrence, especially for the next year. Your medications will help, but it is important to avoid situations or circumstances that are known to trigger your condition, Dr. Patel advised. After agreeing to follow her recommendations, Mindy couldn't help but mention her not for profit organization. So many people see a need but don't do anything about it. What inspired you? She asked. Like you said, I saw a need. When I went into this profession, I did it because I wanted to help people. I wanted to improve their lives. If I could do that, I would know that I made a difference. Along the way, though, it became evident that the system only allowed me to help some people, and they usually weren't the ones who needed help the most. I had a vision to help people outside of the system, and after spending a decade talking about it, I finally did something. That's when Healing Vision was born, she answered. That's remarkable, and I'm sure it's extremely rewarding. It makes me wish I had chosen a career where I could have made a difference in people's lives. Promoting and managing sold out concerts doesn't sound very impressive in comparison, does it? My career revolves around vision, Mindy, but I've learned that it is also about observation, something I call our second sight. Observation is free and everyone can access it. You have the gift of observation. Use it to create your own vision. It happens when we are present and curious. If you look hard enough, I believe you'll find that no matter what you do, you can use it to make a difference too. I heal my patients through science. Who knows? Maybe you can find a way to heal people through music. Dr. Patel smiled. The doctor's words weren't soon forgotten. As a matter of fact, her parting words never left Mindy's mind. As she replayed them in her head, she became more and more inspired. Maybe you can find a way to heal people through music. Suddenly, inspiration gave way to an idea, and Mindy smiled. Maybe I can. Maybe I can, she said. Chapter 14. Change. Renewal is unplugging from your past to energize your future. A few weeks later, after putting Rose to bed for the night, Mindy found that she was. Okay, let me read that one more time. Renewal is unplugging from your past to energize your future. And this chapter is called Change. A few weeks later, after putting Rose to bed for the night, Mindy found that she was too restless to sleep, something she'd been experiencing with more frequency as time went on. When she worked long hours, that hadn't been the case. In those days, she was exhausted at the end of the day, but since she'd left her job, she found she had too much pent up energy when the day was done to drift off to sleep quickly. Rather than tossing and turning, she put her earbuds in to listen to an audiobook, a practice that she'd started when she needed to rest her eyes. Over time, she found she enjoyed listening to books as much as reading them. Flipping through the library of audiobooks saved on her phone, she settled on one of the favorites she was sometimes compelled to listen to again. Whenever she revisited the universal relationship rhythms, she found that there was some nugget that she'd overlooked. To her surprise, it was also something that she needed to hear at that specific time, a coincidence she couldn't deny. It was a best selling book for a reason. The authors had pulled together some profound life principles and revealed that every area of life required rhythm in order to thrive. There were chapters that discussed the relationship people have with others, such as family members, friends, and coworkers, and the relationships they have with their career, their health, their finances, and even the environment. Even more important was the relationship people have with themselves. Like the book said, if one is out of rhythm in any area of their life, it will affect all areas of their life. Interesting. This is how I'm going to pause for a moment to mention that this is how I came to this program via Duck Vong, who is a former bariatric surgeon, retired. And his original, he was doing the same thing to inspire people to change their lives in a holistic way in order to reduce their weight that they were overweight in. Some people were pretty obese and they came down in weight a lot. I was obese. I didn't know I was obese. And then I went down 27 pounds for a long minute. And I have to say that he got me to start to do this show. And that made it so that I was trying to inspire people to have a good day. And this book it's just so important what we're reading here. Okay, so like the book said, if one is out of rhythm in any area of their life, it will affect all areas of their life. And that's precisely what had happened when she lost her vision. Her home life was out of rhythm with her work life. Her professional life was way out of rhythm with her non existent personal life, and rhythm was thrown so far off that each nut and bolt that had held her life together came loose. On this night, she turned to the end of the book and the section entitled Renewal, and she felt like the words were being spoken directly to her. Life is a series of endings and beginnings. There is a tendency to get so lost in the past that it becomes impossible to envision a brighter future. Rather than mourn or regret what once was, look upon the path as a period of growth. Like the passing seasons, change is inevitable. Embrace the changes before you and look to them as a time of renewal. This is an opportunity for every area of your life to sync together in perfect rhythm while creating harmony in your relationship to yourself and the world around you. Quote, end quote. That was precisely where Mindy felt she was in her life. She needed to step out of her comfort zone and make a decision about how to move forward, but unlike she'd done in the past, this time she knew the importance of strengthening relationships in all areas of her life instead of avoiding them. On one hand, it was a scary proposition. On the other, though, it was exciting to consider what could be. The entertainment industry is what she knew best, and she felt she had a strong professional relationship with the industry as a whole, even though she'd avoided establishing personal relationships within it. Like Dr. Patel had said, every career and industry provided an opportunity to make a difference, and Mindy was beginning to believe that. After all, music was a universal language. It was so much more than filling concert halls and stadiums. She had seen and experienced one aspect of music in the past, but she knew it held untouched potential she'd never before considered. Knowing this was her season of renewal, Mindy had a dream to create a concert that would make all the concerts she'd promoted pale in comparison. It would be a concert that would relate to the people and the causes, hopes, and dreams that were important to them. It would promote a message that would benefit people from all walks of life and even more, give back to them by raising funds to fight hunger and abuse, support wellness and mental health, and the many other causes and missions that impact people's lives. She knew the vision for her business required widespread collaboration, input, and assistance. There were many spinning wheels that had to be set into motion. Publishers, agents, and artists were just the tip of the iceberg. Based on her business experience as a concert producer, she knew she'd be doomed to failure if she went into this business in a if if she went into this venture as a business as usual mode. For the first time, she was more prepared to relinquish some of her control, delegate responsibilities, and rely on a large network of people to connect and collaborate to bring it all together. Rich was also at a crossroads. While being a stockbroker provided him with financial security and the flexibility to enjoy songwriting, travel, and his family, It wasn't his passion. He didn't relate to his career, not in the same way that he related to his songs. And as he became a more observant songwriter, he was able to inject more of his emotions into his music. So, like Mindy, he was entertaining, doing something different with his life. Every time he considered his options, it was music that called his name. It made sense to Rich. After all, his relationship with music was the only one he had held dear outside of his relationship with his father and now his siblings. Yet he wondered why he was being pulled in a different direction. Yes, he'd grown as a songwriter, and he'd stood in his responsibility to repair the frayed relationships with his brother and sister, but he couldn't help but feel there was something more purposeful calling him. And we shall go into that next week. We will talk about the end of the book, and we will talk about the afterword and the acknowledgments. This is about the authors. The authors are here. How do I put it up here? There we go. There we go. I have a photo that I'll show you too when I find it. Okay, so we will talk to you again tomorrow for our Stoics, and I will see you later. Old Kinderhead.